Big stories. Thursday night regulars join me, media writer for The Australian, Sophie Ellsworth, and Deputy Executive Director of the Institute of Public Affairs, Daniel Wilding. Welcome to you both. Let's start in Victoria. I was just talking about Lily D'Ambrosio, the Minister there. What a shocker she is. Surprise, surprise, the state government has got another project running over budget. Now, this is we have to tell people around the country what this is. This is the Metro Rail Tunnel. Not many people who even live in Melbourne know where it goes from, where it ends up. But it's now, the budget's blown out by more than $3 billion. The builders are likely now to seek more taxpayer cash to finish the job after contingency funds ran out. Daniel, it seems like the Victorian government is running some sort of white elephant breeding program. Do you know where that tunnel goes from and to?
No, I couldn't tell you, Steve, nor could I tell you about many of the other projects that are supposed to be up and running by now. But this is a big problem. It's already 25% over budget. They're saying we need to have more cash being put into it. This is a state that has $160 billion in debt without any idea of how this is going to be paid back. And it reinforces the fundamental point that, firstly, this government can't manage money, it can't manage the economy. Secondly, Victoria is the economic basket case of the nation. They are the lowest performing economy on key measures, whether it's to do with business growth, whether it's to do with tax or regulation. So this just reinforces that the economy is collapsing. So
we've got Anthony Albanese today, complaining that Peter Dutton's 7 nuclear reactors might cost $100 billion. The suburban rail loop is already at $216.7 billion, and it will go further than that. And that goes from Cheltenham to Box Hill. And I've never met a person who wants to go from Cheltenham to Box Hill.
No.
That's nowhere to nowhere, or nowhere to somewhere you don't want to go.
Well, that's right. And look,
not being unkind to Box Hill, but...
No, but it's a boondoggle project that's designed for political reasons, not for economic or social reasons. Yes, build a rail line to the airport. People are going to use that. There's going to be value. But like you say, this rail loop has no or very limited economic value, but massive costs that are not accounted for.
Yeah, it's just a disgrace. Now, newly installed ABC chair Kim Williams apparently is looking at a dramatic shake-up at the national broadcaster. He made a speech last night. It looks like he wants more money. He's going to aim his anger, I guess, at the underperforming radio arm. He's also put his hand out for more money in the budget. They already get $1 billion a year. Sophie, you've been pretty critical of the ABC and their ratings. Is that what he is zeroing in on? Because we've got to remember Kim Williams was a commercial animal at one point.
Well, Steve, just to remind viewers, the ABC gets $1.1 billion annually of our money to prop up the organisation. That is a lot of money, and commercial broadcasters would be very envious of that amount. They get regardless. Doesn't matter if their ratings are in the toilet bowl or not.
$1,000 million.
That's right. And in their latest annual report, their audience reach this financial year is at 67%. That's expected to fall to 63%. They've got declining audiences across their radio, their television arm, and people are tuning out of the ABC because it's no longer catering for the average punter. It's catering to a select group of the community, not widespread Australia.
What's their bigger problem, radio or television?
I would argue radio. They have had a massive overhaul of radio. Steve, you would know with your extensive radio career. They've had to absolutely try and turn things around, but their audiences have been plummeting across all of their stations and all of their networks.
I might help. I'm on ABC Morning Radio tomorrow morning.
Great.
At an outside broadcast in the Preston Market. That'll be
brilliant.
Fun. With
Raph Epstein.
With Raph Epstein.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Daniel, they do a ranking of the most trusted media sources. I saw that came out overnight. And the ABC, which has always trumpeted, the Australians trust the ABC, they've slipped to number 2.
Wow.
SBS has gone to number 1.
Wow, that's significant. And the reason for that is, building on what Sophie said, they don't represent the views of the average Australian who have to pay for the ABC, and they don't allow a debate. I mean, all you have to do is look at the Voice to Parliament. They refuse to have those on the no side on. Look at the climate debate. Look at COVID. They refuse to have both sides of the debate represented, and that's why Australians are tuning out.
Look at the way someone, Sarah Ferguson, treats Peter Dutton or any of the Liberal ministers when they go on. It's
but Steve, I will add in what Daniel's saying there, with that they won't have, for example, the no campaigners. A lot on the Conservative and the right-leaning side, they don't want to go on the ABC. You look at Q&A and they have a panel absolutely stacked, as we saw in The Voice, all yes campaigners, and they struggled to get a no
I went
campaigner.
on Q&A
so why
once
would
and
you?
got stitched up. And
So why would you go back for
that? You wouldn't go back. It is official. Australia's big spending Labor state governments are adding, it seems, to the cost of inflation with all of these major projects. The bill that could hit $800 billion by 2028 of national debt. This comes a few days after the Reserve Bank warned about inflation. Governments are adding to that inflation problem. So it's the government who keeps saying we want to fix the cost of living, but they're causing part of the problem.
Well, that's right. And you add the federal debt, which is approaching $1 trillion. That's $1.8 trillion. Now, our entire economy is about $2.2, $2.3 trillion. So we're really getting up there. There's a couple of things here, Steve. Obviously, this spending is inflationary, so it's cranking up demand. We've got mass migration, which is increasing demand. At the same time as our supply capacity is coming down, our productivity growth is dropping. So you've got those two problems at the same time. The government's got no answers for how to firstly pay down the debt, or secondly, how to get the economy growing in a way that's not dependent on population growth, but we're actually getting productivity moving. So this is a pretty fundamental financial problem that we're facing.
And Sophie, I don't know if you saw much of the coverage today of the reaction from Labor to the Dutton nuclear plans. It's childish. They're putting out cartoons of three-eyed fish outside nuclear plants and talking about Snow White and the seven dwarfs and having them as reactors. Can't we have a sensible, grown-up debate? I mean, if you go out there and talk to people in the street and say, do you want cheaper electricity? Yes. Are you running a business and do you need it all the time? Yes. Would you like every sort of resource to give you that electricity? People go, yes.
But I think, Steve, this shows to me that the government is concerned about this. This is a threat to them because, for once, there is a real point of difference now between whether you're going to vote for the government or the opposition. And I think Peter Dutton has obviously made that decision to go down this route. We still need to know a lot more about it, such as the costings. But yes, putting out images of three-headed fish and whatever, I don't think that's going to really
Daniel,
vote.
to Sky's credit today, they were the only network, as I understand, that went to every location of where those 7 reactors will be, and they spoke to real people. They went into pubs, they went into shopping centres. They got a mixed feedback on whether you'd want it there or not, which is natural. But the majority of what I saw was saying, well, if it brings jobs and it means my power's reliable and cheaper, bring it on.
Well, I mean, it's important leadership from Peter Dutton and the coalition to take this big policy to the people. The point on cost is a critical one, and I just think about it from this perspective. Labor's saying we need about 20,000 kilometres of transmission lines, plus the big towers, plus the concrete wind towers, plus the solar.
No costing.
No costing on that, and they're going to plug it in and develop an entirely new system. With the nuclear plant, you got a coal plant, you take that out, you put the nuclear plant in. How is that more expensive than what Labor's doing?
No, and what does Chris Bowen say if you say to him, OK, if you want the complete costing of Peter Dutton's plan to build nuclear reactors, can we have the complete costing of what it's going to cost to carpet bomb the country with solar panels, wind turbines and transmission lines? And what are you saying to all of those farmers out in regional Australia who go, how come we got to wear the cost of all this? No one in Manly or Brighton in Melbourne's going to be having a wind turbine stuck up in front of them. I mean, both sides, I just would pray and hope that we could have some sort of mature adult debate. It's not going to happen, I don't think.
It doesn't seem that way, Steve. And it was interesting this morning. Chris Bowen was on Radio National and they asked him, are you going to say the same line that he did back at 2019 election where it was something like, if you don't like us, don't vote for us? And I noticed he was incredibly guarded. He knew that was a mistake when he said it. He is really being careful with what he says. But I think they're just going on this childish attack. They're not trying to fight the argument enough, and that could do them damage.
Speaking about childish, a Fox poll in the United States shows Joe Biden has slightly come back, Daniel, on his numbers. Donald Trump stood up today and suggested that perhaps they were using the Hunter Biden cocaine from the White House to get Joe out to the debate, which I thought it was a bit rough. That's the first time, though, that Biden's gone back forward in the polls, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah, look, that's right. And I think Trump would be concerned about that. We know that the polls are polls and they indicate how people feel at the moment, not necessarily how they're going to vote. But at the moment, Trump is still ahead in all the key swing states, whether it's Pennsylvania or Wisconsin and so forth, which is what really matters in the American system. So, look, I think that when we have the debates, when Trump gets out there more, he'll pull that back. But no doubt Trump would be concerned about that.
So if it was a Fox News poll of all polls.
It was, Steve, but look, we've got a long way. The election's not until November. There's an awful lot that can happen between then and now. And we also have their first debate between the two in the next
2
week.
weeks tomorrow.
That's
live on Sky. It's a CNN debate.
That's right.
Where the rules and regulations are no live audience.
Yeah.
They're going to mute the microphone when each of the other is talking, but it's going to be run by a CNN moderator. So the cards are stacked against Donald Trump. But if he wins that debate, they're going to have to. I mean, there's been this bizarre theory that people like Barack Obama and Bill Clinton and others are going to take him aside and say, Joe, time's up, mate. We're going to...
Well, and it's whether he fumbles too, isn't it? Like, we know he gets his words confused, he says the wrong names of people and places, and, he could, embarrass himself.